Hello everybody, welcome to Crafty Soup. My name is Misty. Today is Freebie Friday here on the channel, and that means I offer a free cut file as well as a free sketch for you to use as you see fit. And I have a bit of a twist on the sketch this month, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But first, let's start with this cut file, which is a fall inspired cut file. Now it is designed to fill a whole 12 by 12 page, but when I do these freebie videos, I also do a project. So I shrunk mine down to create an 8.5 by 11 layout. And that is what my sketch is about this month as well. And stay tuned because I will convert that sketch to a 12 by 12 also, in case you don't do 8.5 by 11 crafting. Now with the cut file, you can see I've started putting it together. I do include these backer pieces, which is how my cut files are a little bit different than other cut files. That way you don't have to work on trimming all of these pieces out. Now here I'm showing you backing the A of the cut file. Now remember that the letter A has these inner pieces to the letter that you need to save when you cut out the frame so that your letter will be complete. Now, of course, stylistically, you don't have to save those. You can just do a solid letter A. I like the extra detail to the letter when I'm doing these. So next up, I did the leaf backing, and then finally I'm doing the circle backing. And because all of these layer behind each other, you do have to stack them that way. Otherwise, you will not be able to see your word behind the circle if you do it in the wrong order. All right, so now that you've seen the cut file in action, let's go ahead and put it on a layout. I have got this photo of a view out my kitchen window of a beautiful fall tree. I am using some scrap paper here, and actually I pulled out several sheets of paper to try and decide what I wanted to use as my background. Now that title piece sure does pop on the light blue, but I liked the detail in this gray paper, so I am going to use that one. I am going to cut it down to 8.5 by 11 because that is the size I'm doing today. As I work more and more on my own stories for my own binder, I am switching to the smaller size because I don't have as many photos to tell my stories. So I've just got this single 4x6 for today. And in fact, the main interesting part of that photo is even smaller. It's just in that upper portion of the photo. And I'm going to try and nestle that into my title and highlight it in other ways as I create this layout so that that part stands out a little bit more. And I'll detail those as we go along, those techniques. I am going to create a little bit of a subtitle here. I'm going to say Fall Vibes. Part of me wanted to say Fabulous Fall here and kind of arch the title around the top of, or rather arch that subtitle around the top of this title cut file. I do have some Simple Story products. I think they're from last year, maybe the year before, probably the year before. And I'm going to use these as little embellishing pieces. I liked this particular piece because of the shape that helps move the eye around the page with kind of the arrow points to this shape. If you know what that particular label shape is called, let me know because I'm not sure if it has a specific name. So I am going to start adhering things down as I finalize the ideas for this layout. So that subtitle is going to tuck right under my cut file title. And then my photo, like I said, I'm going to nestle that F right around the focal part of the image. And using the other piece of that label as an arrow, I'm going to add that over there so it points right at that tree, which is the focus of my photo. And then the kind of the dead space, the empty space of the photo, I'm going to cover up with my journaling block just a little bit. And I am experimenting a little bit here with other ways to highlight that photo. Perhaps a frame would work. And you know, looking at it now that I'm editing, I think it could have worked just fine, but I went with using the leftover cutoff piece instead of using an entirely new piece from my die cut pack. So with some ideas in mind, I start making some final decisions. I am going to use that tag and layer up little bits and pieces around and under that tag. And you can see that I really like that little orange frame. And so I keep trying to tuck it in there, but in the end, I'm going to pass it by and save it for another layout where it can actually work as a frame. So now I feel like I have kind of a visual flow around the page. I did add some embellishment in that upper corner to help with that kind of circular flow of the eye moving around the page. I'm going to finalize my little embellishment clusters with some sticker images from this sticker book and rearranging bits and pieces as I go as needed. I do add that little banner there, and then I will add my little word strip back on top of that. Keeping that upper cluster pretty small helps move the eye without overly attracting the eye. And when I'm creating clusters, there are some general rules that I follow, and not all the time, but in general. I like to have at least 3 elements. I like to mix and match sizes, so a large, small, and medium size. I like to overlap and touch things together. I try to include, if possible, I will include some images as well as some small words. Although in the past I've been including too many words and they've started competing both with my title and my journaling. So I'm trying to kind of scale that back a little bit and keep my words smaller and more to the background and embellishment rather than the eye-catching elements that draw attention away from other things. So you can see I'm trying to do that with my little subtitle here as well. I added a little imagery icon. I've got the words that are part of the subtitle. And then I'm adding a couple more imagery pieces here for that size layering element. And that's a couple of leaf stickers. And I think those leaf stickers, where I angled them, also helps curve the eye around the layout just a little bit. So those are some of the things I think about when I am creating embellishment clusters. I am trying to decide for a third bit for this little pointer cluster, and I realized I could have placed this a little bit better because now my word is kind of covering up the arrow aspect of that little journaling tag. So I did trim it down a little bit, which luckily I could do, and that finishes it up. Now, if you're not in 8.5 by 11 scrapper and you prefer 12 by 12, here are some simple ideas on how to expand this to a 12 by 12 layout. I'll take an extra piece of pattern paper from that base and carry it off to another side of the layout. I will expand an embellishment cluster that's close to the edge. In this case, I have 2 embellishment clusters close to the edge. And then I will add a third cluster off to that side of the 12 by 12 layout with more imagery and all of those elements that I mentioned before. So let's take another peek at these sketches. First up is that 8.5 by 11 sketch, and you can see how I translated that into my layout with some of those same flows of elements. And then you can see in the next sketch how I converted that into the 12 by 12. So that wraps up this video today. And as we take a close-up look at these, I will say that all of these sketches in various formats, as well as the cut file, are available on my blog, and you will be able to find the links down in the show description if you are interested in downloading these freebies and using them in your crafting. I will be back tomorrow with a layout process video for the Counterfeit Kit Club, and I hope you will join me for that. And until then, have an artful day.